Good morning, Eric.
Hi.
Uh, Tai Freligh with Flickering Myth.
Hey.
Um, I think it's interesting when you look at the comic books that the show is based on. They originally started with DC, but then DC was kind of like, this
Right.
is too edgy for us. So they went to an independent publisher. Where you're on Amazon, um, is there any sort of hard lines that Amazon has given you in terms of what you can and can't do? I mean, judging from what we've seen already, probably not, but is there
Um,
any?
no, I have to say, they've been great. They are putting up with all sorts of insanity from us. They question things, like in season two, or I'm sorry, in season one, they were like, does the dolphin really have to ask to be jerked off? And we would say yes, absolutely, it's really important to the character. And then they would allow us to do it. Or there's sort of this scene in season. There was only one scene in season one that they didn't want us to show, which involved Homelander and masturbating. But I will say, without giving away too many spoilers, that scene may be making a comeback. I'm proud to say. Now that I got a little more juice with a popular show, I was able to finagle a little something, something. But you'll just have to tune in to find out.
Hi, Tai Freligh with Flickering Myth. Question for Chace. Can you talk a little bit about that uber creepy singing Gill scene? To film that and do that scene?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I guess I can tell a story like way back. I think we were doing TCAs last year for season one, and it had nothing even come out. But I ran to Seth Rogen. We got to kind of see each other, Seth Rogen and Kripke there, and Seth's kind of like, "Hey, Kripke, tell him what we're writing for him about the mushrooms." You know what I mean? And anyway, so I kind of knew that was on the horizon, but when it happened, we dropped. We didn't shoot it in sequence. It was kind of dropped, and it was sort of floating on the schedule of like, when are we going to get to this? So I was that was the one I was a little nervous about, like wanting to get that in the can and kind of get it over with. But it was weird. It was great because it was second unit. We had a ton of time to do it, and they had another guy on there in the background that was a singer, he was a theatrical, like Broadway musicals, and so I was really keyed into him. I'm like, help me out here, like help me get on key at least. And so we were like together in between like takes, and luckily there wasn't a ton of people involved as far as crew goes in that little room to get me like weirded out. But it was a lot of weird stuff. But yeah, we had it was actually broken up quite a bit too. They had like the train like come right in, the camera like underneath my face, and Phil really shot it well. And it was weird, and it was a lot of fun, to be honest. I was glad to get that one down. So yeah.
I would pay good money to see the outtakes from that scene.
Yeah, there was definitely some good outtakes. That's what I realized in season one. I'm like, I gotta just try. I tried a bunch of different ways, so we got to it was really piecemeal too, a little bit. We were trying to do certain parts first, and it was really smooth the way they shot it. So
Tai Freligh with Flickering Myth.
Hey, Ty.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
My question is about that scene where your character basically puts Homelander in his place. And I'm wondering if you could kind of talk about it from two different perspectives. One, what was that like as an actor, working with Tony Starr, who plays Homelander so brilliantly, doing that scene and playing off of each other? And then secondly, as the character, putting Homelander back in his place.
I adore Anthony. I do agree with you. He does brilliant, ingenious work. And what I love is he's a connected actor. We have a mutual friend in an actor, Frankie Faison, who he worked with on Banshee. So, Frankie and I speak from time to time. And so I know a little bit more about Anthony, knew more about him before I started to work with him. In the moments that we have and we really connect, we have formidable scenes. because we listen to each other. I, in that particular scene, sort of detested how he entered my office, detested it. So underneath my poker face is this feeling of like, wow, you have a pretty big ego. You have a pretty large sense of yourself. And then he starts to go on and on and on. And I realize, oh, he has no clue who's running the show. So let me allow him to know who's running the show. And let me then try to educate him. And so that becomes a different dynamic than just a stand down dynamic, a stare down, a scream down. That becomes a dynamic that's more of let me help you understand. Father, son, maybe, brother to brother, maybe, but educate him as to what's really happening, but only tell him just enough to put his ego back in place. We want Homelander's fire. We want his, his bluster. We want his power, but it has to be contained. He wants fame, I would imagine. I would imagine many of the seven do. I love the scene with Starlight's walking down the street and, she has her sunglasses on, her hood up, and she sees herself in that wonderful, huge mural. And it's like, wow, to have to be able to live in a world where to be human and to be real and to play out your regular emotions outside of your day job, you got to hide. So all of these elements play so deeply into where our story is going to go. The other part of your question to ask that you asked was, so remind me again, it was, you asked me about how playing with Anthony was, but then from the standpoint of Stan.
Yeah, from the standpoint of your character.
From the standpoint of my character, this guy, what we don't know, what I could allude to, which I put in my mind, and it hasn't been written, is that Stan has all the power. So he's not threatened at all by Homelander. I think the most important thing for him to know is to allay Homelander's anger, put his anger away, and have him start to think. And because Stan, in my brain, I could get rid of any of these seven. I created them. The company, Vought, created them, and he could get rid of any of them. But Homelander's an asset. So why not keep him in a position where he can serve the people? Very complicated, but he's a little boy. So you have to deal with him in a certain way. So from a character standpoint, when I look at that scene, I'm just so amazed because Anthony's powerful and I'm powerful, but he doesn't rock my world whatsoever. If anything, it's the fact that he doesn't have the grace and the plum to make an appointment. So Stan takes it down to a level of, this is what's appropriate and you're inappropriate. So get out of my office, basically. But I got to take this time to tell you all these things and to allow you to know who's the boss. And I think that really destroys Homelander in a certain way. What's to stop him from taking Stan out? We'll find that out later.
What do you think your character wants? Are we going to see that this season?
I don't know because I haven't discussed it with the writers. For me, I have a plethora of ideas of what he wants. I think he's guiding a company to be able to be the company. Look, all these analogies, many of them that I make are in regard to our policies and politics and elected officials in the U.S. Because I see so many reflections in this very playful yet intense The Boys show that allow me to think that Stan, look, what do we all want? I mean, at a certain point in our growth and development, we want to be successful. We want to take over the world. We want to take the world by storm. But there's something else that Stan wants, and you're right. And it's about the science. What can the science do to elevate and extend all of us as human beings without harming our vessel, without making us monsters? So all of this is a very big, how shall I say it? It's an investigation. It's a test. Will this work? And can we have a world where people are empowered, physically more powerful, with able to see through walls and move things and do all the things that you see in the show? Is that a possibility to allow us to become the super race? Who knows? We'll see.
This is Tai with Flickering Myth. And this question is for both of you. In the comic books, eventually Annie and Huey end up engaged. and then
Oh
troubles.
yeah.
So,
Sorry, I
do you
forgot.
think your characters are going to end up together at some point?
Ooh, that's the $1 million question.
I know, truly.
Because we take little liberties from the comics, so
Yeah.
I truly don't know where
Yeah.
Eric plans for us to go. I mean, Erin, what do you think? What do you think is the best scenario for them?
I agree. I think I have no idea, just because we try and strike this balance between honoring some of the comic book or the graphic novel and taking our own liberties. But you know what I will say that I'm pretty confident in, and all of this is speculation. Eric has said nothing to us. But let's say if we didn't end up together, I think Annie and Huey would ended on a good note that would imply they would be very good friends forever.
Yes.
Because the nice thing about their romance that I just love exploring and what makes it so intimate and deep is that they're also best friends. So I'd say they either end up together or they end up like as solid best friends who will be connected forever. At this point, they're pretty bonded.
Well, they have what we call a trauma bond, which is they're both hashtag trauma bond.
Yes.
They've both been through a lot and a lot of similar things. Like, they're very similar in how they kind of were brought into this insane world. And Erin, I never really thought about that. I think that they are each other's best friends.
They are.
There really isn't
I think so.
anyone else, because I'm trying to think. No, and that's really interesting. I love rooting for a friendship as well as a romance.
Yeah.
Which I think is so cool. Yeah.
Tomer, do you think Frenchie's ever going to get the girl, aka the female?
Get the girl. First of all, I think we're going to find out specifically about Frenchie this season. That maybe, he's not into getting the girl without no AKA female or whatever. Frenchie is definitely a free spirit, and we get a glance to that too in this season. So I'm just gonna say he loves everybody, every kind. And in terms of Kamiko, I don't know. It's this relationship is so spiritual. I think it's beyond the romantic, brotherly, family. It's so weird, and I love that in season 2 we are definitely facing it. And you're gonna get some weird stuff trying to happening over there, and there's a lot that's going on between those two in season 2. Yeah.
Hey, Tai with Flickering Myth.
Hi, mate. How are you?
I'm excellent. I would characterize Homelander and Stormfront's relationship as petulant child versus arrogant teenager. Would you agree with that? And is that kind of how you're playing it in season 2?
Depends who you think is who. Who do you think is which?
You're petulant child, sweetie.
Yeah, I've got to be petulant child.
You're the petulant child. She's the arrogant teenager who knows everything.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Absolutely. Like, the thing about the way I would characterize the relationship initially, at least, is Homelander is a pretty old school kind of guy who doesn't handle his own social media, so doesn't really know his way around that world, doesn't really understand. He wants everyone to love him, whereas Stormfront is representative of that new breed of what are they called? God, this is where life and art are intersecting. Influencers, right? So they're all very social media savvy, and she's more like that, and that's just these worlds collide, and it's a really bizarre relationship for both of the characters to negotiate. Probably more for me, actually, where she's maybe a little smarter than Homelander, and maybe a little more, definitely more savvy, just definitely more up to speed with modern times. But what do you think, Aya?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the accurate interpretations of how they start. I do think their relationship develops and grows and changes quite drastically throughout the season in terms of how they interact with each other. So, yeah, we definitely start from that place.
What did you think of sort of the plot twist from the comic book version, where your pregnant wife gives birth to a super child, she dies, and you kill the child? So it's a total flip around.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's probably one better answered by Eric Kripke, because he's obviously our showrunner and the head writer, and I just think that he saw more potential for on-screen storytelling to go in a different direction. And certainly season 2 is a big season for all the characters, but particularly for Butcher and particularly for Becca, it's really difficult to talk about it without giving too much away. But needless to say, if you're a fan of the comics, then there's a lot in season 2 for you.